Welcome to Kilroy's Outlaws and Legends Behind the Music with your host, multi-award-winning music producer, Eddie Kilroy. And now, here's your host, Eddie Kilroy.
Hey, how are you? Glad to have you here for another edition of Kilroy's Outlaws, Legends, and Behind the Music. I say behind the music, and it's legends, and it's people like that. It's you're a fan of these people, but a lot of them passed on, and a lot of them are still living. And we tell you what was going on in their personal life because we were blessed to call them my friends. But today I want to talk about one particular guy who's a heck of a guy. It seemed like Oklahoma, for years, has provided us with many, many great entertainers. I don't have to tell you their names. You know who they are. One in particular, I was really a fan of this guy. He's gone on now, Mel McDaniel. And a great guy, had a lot of hits. He had like Louisiana Saturday Night. Well, that was a big one. He was from Chicota, Oklahoma. One of those Oklahoma boys up around Tulsa. He spent a lot of his time playing clubs around the Tulsa area. And he decided to go into Alaska. Of all places for an Okie to go into Alaska. The reason he went there is an oil boom up there in that particular era and that particular time, and he wanted to take advantage of the dance halls, the beer joints there that were open and consequently booming because of the influx of people in the work in the oil field. And by and large, as he knew from being here in Oklahoma, a lot of the Roughnecks or oil field workers were country music fans, so it'd be a great opportunity for him to work there and kind of spread his wings, polish his trade. So he went to Alaska. And right after he left Alaska, he said, you know what, I think I am ready for Nashville, Tennessee. Well, first of all, let me back up. He had gone to Nashville for a few minutes prior to going to Alaska. It didn't work out. So, and that happens in many cases. Toby Keith went back 3 times, I think. I know he went back 2 times, maybe 3, maybe 4, I don't know. Toby went back until it paid off, and Mel did the same thing. And he's started writing for a publishing company called Combine Music. And Combine was run by a friend of mine, Bob Beckham. And so not only was he writing for them, he was singing demos. And you get paid for singing a demo. Demos are, it's a song that a writer in that particular publishing company, which was Combine, had written, and they need a demo on it. The demo is to present the song to other artists, to A&R people, producers, and what have you. So it has to be demoed. And these demo singers, which some of them turned out to be really famous, like Janie Fricke, people like that. And Mel McDaniel did the same thing. And Bob Beckham, who was running the company, was listening to the demos that Mel was doing for his publishing company. And he said, the guy needs a record deal. I'm going to start shopping him for a record deal, the songs he wrote and the way he's singing. And he landed him a pretty good record deal with a major label, Capitol Records. At that time, it was Ken Nelson was flying in from L.A. They did not have a permanent guy with Capitol in Nashville at that time. Ken Nelson was flying in from L.A. and handling all of the production and what have you in Capitol. So he signed Mel McDaniel. And then they started popping hits in the early 80s, like Baby's Got Her Blue Jeans On, Stand Up, that was a big one, Big Old Brew, Louisiana Saturday Night. That was his first one. Who would forget that one? That was a good one, That old Okie started shining. But some of the things I was going to tell you about there are kind of funny. Back in, oh, Lord help me, I'm going to start telling my age because I'm getting old. But back when Jimmy Carter was president of the United States, I think he went in there with one mission, to be the worst president that we ever had. And he kept that title until Biden came along and Biden blew him out of the saddle. But anyway, Carter decided to raise the interest rates. And did he raise the interest rates? Oh, my God, had he ever. And there was a guy by the name of Clarence Reynolds. Clarence is a good guy. Hard to describe him in a way. He was president of the branch office of Third National Bank on West End Avenue in Nashville, and he loved country music. He loved country entertainers, and he wanted to be around them all he could. And how does he get to be around all these famous entertainers without being involved with them in the business? I'm making a story out of this because it goes to show how things affect you in your personal life along with your successful life. There was a time, not too many years before I tell this story, it was before I took over Playboy Records and started with Gilly, and it was a time they probably didn't even want me in the bank. We'd rather not have you in our bank, sir. You're in the music business. So most of us had become accustomed to that because the music industry the people were not accepted with the blue bloods and the old money in Nashville, Tennessee. Well, one day I was in the Fair and Young building where the Playboy offices were. I had taken the second floor of this 4-story building. Farron's office was up on the third. I was on the second floor, and my phone rang, and it was Farron. He said, "Hey, there's somebody up here that wants to meet you." And I said, "Well, who in the world is it, Farron?" He said, "Clarence Reynolds from Third National Bank." And I said, "What in the world is Clarence Reynolds from Third National Bank? What does he want with me?" He just wants to meet you. And I said, "Well, bring him on down." That's probably more than I would have gotten if I'd walked in his place. But nevertheless, he came down. We had a cordial meeting. He said, "Kilroy, we want your business at Third National Bank." And I said, "Well, that's very interesting. I'm kind of settled in over at First American National Bank. We've got friends over there, and we're doing our banking there." He said, "Yeah, but you don't understand. I want your business." Well, quite honestly, I had never had a banker walk into my office and say, "I want your business. I want to loan you money. How much do you want? Give you anything you have, da-da-da." I'm thinking, wow, well, this is like a strange deal. And I said, "Well, gosh, Clarence, I don't need anything." And I may have mentioned this before, I'm not sure in a story. But anyway, to make a long story short, I did think of something I would like to have. Had the money to buy it probably, but it would be probably to buy it on their money and also establish a relationship with a new bank. So I said, "Okay, I'll take $25,000 to buy the particular car I wanted." And he said, not a problem. Just come on by the bank, set it all up, So I did. And one thing led to another, and Jimmy Carter went into office, and the interest rates went, boom, out of sight, as you well remember. And you couldn't buy gasoline without getting in a long line of people at the service stations trying to get gasoline. Well, fooled around. And my accountant said, "I've got a deal for you." I should have taken that as a warning. I said, "What is it?" He said, "There's a new hamburger chain going to go in called Judy's. And it is going to blow Wendy's and the rest of the fast food places out of business. And the franchises are available, and there's one right down here in Nashville that's available for $250,000. And I said, "That's for the franchise? What comes with it?" He said, "Oh, just the name and the franchise." I said, "Well, how do they make the money?" "Well, they sell you cups with the name of the hamburger store on it and the little containers of french fries, and that's where they make their money. Plus all the other supplies, they supply you with the beef and so forth." I'd never had a hamburger chain before, and really was not a fast food fan. But I said, "Well, my accountant said do this, so we'll do it." I said, "Okay, Clarence," I said, "I need $250,000 on my signature." And he said, not a problem. So nevertheless, we made the loan. Nevertheless, Jimmy Carter goes in the office. More than less, all the interest rates are coming due. The notes are coming due on a 90-day note, which most of you are familiar with. You either pay it or you've got to roll the interest, meaning pay the interest and renew the note for another 90 days. I said, "God, okay, boy, 22 or 23%. I think it was 22% on $250,000 is sizable to come up with every 90 days. And I decided another time I would just go in there and roll that note, renew it. Well, I walk in. It looked like a convention of music people. There were folks in there. And I said, "I know what they're here for. First of the month, they're here to renew their note with Clarence because they can't pay the 22% interest. And I was looking around, and I know I'm there, and gosh, I'm in the six figures, so that's going to be a lot. And I see a guy by the name of Red Stegall, and he's over there. I said, "Hey, Red, you here to roll your note?" "Yeah, sure am, Kilroy." And then I saw Mel McDaniel, which brought this story to mind. And I said, "Hey, Mel, how you doing?" "Well, Kilroy, I'm here to roll my note." And I looked over there, and there's Eddie Raven. "Hey, Eddie, how you doing, neighbor?" He lived across the road from me. He said, "I'm here probably doing the same thing you're doing, rolling that note at this 22% interest." And it went on and on. There must have been, I don't recall who all was there now, other than the ones I named, probably 6 or 8 people, and all doing the same thing. But Clarence Reynolds, he loved it because he was I don't know any word. Well, he was obviously a huge fan of country music artists. He wanted a relationship with them, and he was bordering on being a groupie because if you went in his office, I mean, he's got pictures of all the artists autographed to him. He's just obsessed with them, which was good for the artists in some way because they knew where to go to get money if they needed it. But by the same token, they were going to pay through the nose for it. But Clarence was a good guy. He kept a lot of people going that way. He's the one that brought me. First of all, let me back up. There was a guy many, many years ago by the name of George Markin. He had one really, really big record called Candy Kisses, a big record. Well, his daughter is Laurie Markin, and she was young, and she was on the Opry. So Clarence was going to call in a favor, I think, his was intention, and get her a record deal. Remember, he was friends with her dad, whose dad was dead at this time. He had passed away. So he came and presented me with the opportunity to sign Laurie Markin. Well, Laurie was about 15 years old. Playboy was relatively small. I was working, having a lot of hits with Mickey Gilley and hits with Bobby Borchers and some others, but wasn't ready to really make a $250,000 commitment to a new artist. So I passed on Laurie Markin. Perhaps I should have signed her, and had more success with her, stayed in, but legitimately, honestly, she had the talent. I didn't have the money, the budget to put into the marketing, including the video to promote the single, the album tour, the whole deal. It cost a lot of money, cost a record company. To take an act on, it can cost them anywhere from $450,000 to $500,000 to say, yes, I'm going to sign you. But to say, no, I don't want you, or I can't handle you right now, it costs them zero. So many times they're looking at that zero deal. Well, Clarence had a lot of people around, and this show is not about Clarence Reynolds, but it's behind the music and what happens to some of the artists that you would never suspect. I've named you some artists that you would not suspect needed to go in and roll the note. Not me. Everybody suspected Kilroy needed to roll the note, especially that size of note. And the hamburger place never took off, by the way, because it was too close to Wendy's, and Wendy's sued them and found out that they were infringing on some of their building designs and packaging and so forth. So make a long story short, they only opened 23 locations on Judy's, and mine was not one of those. So I left this big bank, which finally got that thing paid off at Third National. I was glad to be done. I'm getting back to Mel McDaniel. He was a great guy, great entertainer that did not live as long as he should have, where we could have seen most of his talent. He died at a relatively young age of lung cancer back in when he passed away? 2011, I think. Yeah, 2011 or 2012, somewhere in there. He was inducted into the Grand Ole Opry in 1986, which was a big deal for Mel and a great honor. But he had so many things going for him, and he was so well liked. He had an accident that right in the middle of having all those big hits, and he was on tour, and he accidentally stepped off a stage into the orchestra pit. That's the area down there where the musicians are, and injured his back terribly. And he was just had a hard time getting around. He went through multiple surgeries and what have you, and he soon, well, I want to say soon, that isn't true. It may have taken him a year or two to get back into working again because of that injury. And then lo and behold, wouldn't you know it, he just got back into the group with all these hit songs. He's got some good dates booked. And he came down with that, what I call the devil's disease, and that's cancer. And he had cancer of the lungs, and we lost him. So we lost him young before he had a chance to exhibit all of his talents. But if you run across a Mel McDaniel record, buy it. You'll enjoy it because there's good songs on it, good singer, and a heck of a good guy that went on up there to be the rest of the good guys in heaven. Yes, up in glory where they're making records right now. I want to speak about our sponsor. I want to speak about Total Feeds. You know I'm a fan of Total Feeds because we've been feeding our horses Total Equine for 16, 17, 18 years, I don't know, ever since it first came out, and we wouldn't change it. But Dr. Harry Anderson said, I've developed this feed for horses, for equine, and it is incredible, but I'm denying some other species that I need feed for. So Dr. Anderson, being the absolute, I don't know what to say, the most incredible animal nutritionist that I've ever known, he developed a feed that goats would thrive on. He developed a feed that bucking bulls that you see on the PBR and the PRCA, though many of those are on Total Bull and Total Bovine. Then there's Total Dogs, canine. Yep, good for you dogs. I talked to a guy that raised working dogs, trained them, and he had all of them. I think he said he had about 30 dogs, and he had them on Total Canine, and he said they all did wonderful. Well, go to the website, totalfeeds.com. You can read about Dr. Harry Anderson. You can read about the formulas that he has. He also has this thing called Total People. And I mean, you start taking this stuff, and you feel better immediately. Every time I see something on TV on this, taking these pills, well, some lady's carrying them in a purse, and she's taking them while she's doing her flowers or whatever she's doing. But you don't have to do this. Just take it in the mornings, and it's called Total People. Go to the website, totalfeeds.com. totalfeeds.com. Read about the formulas, read about the feed, read about what that Harry Anderson has done with the feeds, and say, hey, you need to be telling all of your customers to subscribe to Kilroy's Outlaws, Legends, and Behind the Music, okay? Hit that subscribe button. We need your help. We really do. We need some help in building this audience and keeping the stories going, the things that are lost in Nashville if we don't preserve them. So please subscribe, like, and on top of that, share with your friends, okay? Also, any comments, boom, send a comment. If there's an artist that you want some info on you don't particularly have or haven't been able to find, I'll try my darndest to find it for you. So, hey, Kilroy's Outlaws, Legends, and Behind the Music, saying God bless each and every one of you. See you next time. Hey, bring up old paint. I got to ride out of here. Adios. Happy trails to you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Kilroy's Outlaws and Legends Behind the Music. If you have any thoughts or questions about the content, email them. Kilroy Outlaws and Legends, all one word, at yahoo.com. That's Kilroy, no S, Outlaws and Legends, all one word, at yahoo.com. And don't forget to subscribe. Third-party use of any part of this podcast without the expressed consent of Eddie Kilroy is prohibited. The Kilroy's Outlaws and Legends Behind the Music podcast is a production of Eddie Kilroy.